Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently developing our Gilly Eve outpost here. And one question that does need to be answered is, does this heat shield protect everything that we've got here? We'll need to find that out. For the moment, let's go ahead and deflate this heat shield. And if we put this out on the pad, things are going to get awkward, isn't it? Because this is going to instantly tip over. Okay. Luckily, I have thought about that, and if we go into our cheats here, we can just turn on unbreakable joints, no crash damage for the time being, for this testing regimen purpose. So we'll go ahead and save this and put this out on the pad. It's gonna fall over. We know that. That's okay. So we put that out there, and the main question is, how is this heat shield looking as far as entry into Eve goes? Like, how slow does it bring us down to and such? So we'll need to take a look at that. Yeah, we're going to fall over. We know that's going to be a thing. Ooh, okay. Those bounce all over. That's pretty great. So, real quick here, let's pop into the cheat menu yet again. This is going to be a mess. And we're going to secure these down a little bit better later on. But this is why we turn those cheats on. And we're now just going to set our position above Eve with no velocity, somewhere around, let's see here, an altitude of 200,000. I don't care where on Eve. Okay. There we go. Excellent. Apparently this is the night side. Sure, it doesn't actually matter. So let's get this moved on around. This is really wiggling around. Obviously we need to secure this. Okay. We cannot warp faster than 1x while the ship is under acceleration? Oh, we're still physics easing. Hang on. Let's not ease to ground. There we go. Cool. So we're heading over towards retrograde here, and in theory, these will be secured via struts at this time. So they're not going to be wiggling around. That's not really what we're concerned with. We're going to inflate this heat shield, and we're going to begin our warp. It looks like this has full coverage to me. But we're just going to accelerate up here to a somewhat reasonable re-entry velocity. Yeah, I think this is reasonable. And we're now in the atmosphere. So let's see what this ends up looking like. And hopefully these don't wiggle around too much. But let's go. Obviously, this is not our final landing solution. This is just our entry solution, for the record. What is... Okay. Well, that's a problem. So we failed to hold the attitude there. Okay. So we'll revert that back to the vehicle assembly, and we'll make a couple of alterations here real quick. Failing to hold the attitude could be due to a couple of different things. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to strut these in. These will eventually be strutted in. But this is something, well, actually they are going to be strutted like this for launch. And we'll have to unstrut them, or at least some of them, on Gilly, and then re-strut them as we get ready to go. So that'll be fine. We can get this done, no problem. Strutting that is okay. Now, we've got this advanced reaction wheel module here. Is that not enough to hold the attitude? That's an interesting question, for sure. Also, I wanted to check here. Did we have some sort of a debug shower on? Because it looked like we did. I don't know, that was a little weird. Let's go ahead and save this and put this back out on the pad and try it again without those bits wildly flailing around, hopefully. So let's see what we've got here. And we'll just deposit this out on Eve immediately. We're definitely fine for our attitude as far as vacuum goes, right? No doubt about that. Okay. Set position over Eve. There we go. Oh, we need to change the altitude again. That's 20,000. Hang on. 200,000. There we go. Set position. Oh, hang on. Did we run out of electric charge? No, surely we didn't. There's no way that we ran out of electric charge, right? Let's go ahead and inflate this heat shield. And we're going to physics warp a bit here. Again, we don't care about the actual landing here. This is definitely a lot more stable. All we're making sure of is that our re-entry here would work. Now, we need to think about this poodle's positioning. No doubt about that. And we may end up swapping the position of these, actually. We'll see. But we want to get this section finished first. So we're going to go ahead and head on in. We are now in the atmosphere here. Perfect. And we're continuing to accelerate, but the only thing we're really interested in making sure of, and we're not going to be coming in at this steep of a trajectory, to be clear, but the only thing we want to really make sure of is that we can hold this attitude, and we absolutely can't. Okay. So that's very good to know. So that probably means that our center of mass is too far away from here. Let's check that. So our center of mass here is all the way up here. Yeah, so our center of mass is definitely too high. No doubt about that. So let's go ahead and ditch this poodle for the time being. We place this here. We could even place an additional SAS down here if we wanted to. So that would go something like that. That'll lower our center of mass a little bit. Our center of mass is still quite high. I don't think that that's going to fix the problem. And inflating the heat shield doesn't change the center of mass. Okay. Noted. So as long as we can hold attitude, I think this is fine. Realistically. The next question. Let's go for a TD25. The next question is, does fuel flow through this heat shield? I think it does. So then we would have a secondary Gilly landing system here. And that would be awkward, but fine. So that would end up looking, not a corgi, it would end up looking like a poodle here. And then another set of these landing struts, which are only intended to be used on Gilly. Alternatively, we could modify the existing landing struts to be using a cubic octagonal strut that would go up here, and then we would have them be extendable. With like a 1P2 might get enough. So something kind of like this. Let's see what that extends to. No, we would need, I think, a 1P4. Okay, so let's get that positioned in something like that. We should probably snap that into position. That's a terrible position to snap that to. Okay, let's just migrate that a little bit. Something kind of like that. Perfect. Back in the place tool, we will extend this down. Yeah, that gets low enough. Okay. Cool. And then I believe from here, to get the correct angle that we want, we need another cubic octagonal strut. And the rotation on that is awkward. So we will just go ahead and fix that rotation here real quick. There we go. That'll do. I also want to grab this and move it out ever so slightly. It's just chilling under the KER window there. There we go. This is not exactly the directions I wanted to see. Okay. Yeah, that'll work a little bit better. Cool. It kind of looks like it's free-floating, but it's fine. So we'll now take our landing struts and deposit those here. Of course, we're going to need a little bit more distance than that. So we'll set our target extension to be down here, and then we'll grab these guys and move them down into position. And this is approximately correct for Gilly. Then if we retract this, is this approximately correct for Eve? It's a little bit high here, I think. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit high. We need this to be about here, to be exact, or to be honest. So, how are we going to pull that one off? Well, that pretty much means that we need to move this up. If I can grab it. There we go. Move this up, and then put in a second cylinder here. So the hydraulic cylinder will need to be like a 1p2, I think. And it'll have to move further up here. So the robotics here will grab a 1p2, and I think that's the wrong directionality. It's definitely the wrong rotation. Oh, there we go. We'll get that rotation correct, and then attach the cubic octagonal strut like that. This guy is, of course, going to have to be moved up a bit more. There we go. So someplace around here-ish. Okay. And then from there, we extend this out. And then this one will need to be extended as well. Cool. That's about correct. Then, on Gilly, or for the purposes of Gilly, we're going to have this strutted in, and those struts will need to be removed later. So something kind of like that. It's very awkward. But get that strutted in like that, and then start that retracted. So this would be the Gilly landing, and I don't know about holding steady like this. That's the main problem here. Because we're going to need to deploy this holding tank here for purposes of our drill-o-matic mining excavator. Alternatively, we could try to leave this on Gilly, as is, with some stabilizers built in over here, perhaps, that are similar to these. It would be awkward, for sure. But what would that end up looking like if we did this? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not going to be a thing. But we do it something like this. Very awkward indeed. Very, very awkward. But a stabilizer kind of like that could end up doing the trick. What we really need is to widen our stance here. So another thing that we could, in theory, do here. That's not at full extension, is it? Actually, this is at full extension. Another thing that we could do, though, is we could put in wideners here. I don't know. I think this is a really bad idea, ultimately. I don't think that we're going to be very successful at landing on Gilly with this setup. So there's that. And I'm not sure that this is actually attached down here. Like, correctly attached. We could do something kind of like that. There. Something kind of like this. That's perhaps correctly attached. Perhaps. And the question then becomes, how does this end up landing on Gilly? I suspect we tip over. The center of mass is so high here. And the high center of mass is going to be a problem going forward. Like, that's going to be a thing that's going to be an issue for a while. How can we lower this center of mass? Well, we could have these be extendable as well, but that's, I think, an even worse idea. So there's that. As far as the actual landing on Gilly goes, we could do a quick test landing here. So save that, put that out on the pad. It's going to be horrific. I'm pretty sure this is going to fall over, but we might be able to hold it steady with SAS. The real question is, how do we get our drills attached? And we may have to move the drill for Gilly and then move it back. Because remember, we have to mine 5,000 units of ore at Gilly. And we're not really going to want to lift that ore necessarily. So that's definitely something to consider. Okay, let's put this over Gilly. And we don't care about actually coming in and landing too much. So we'll set position over Gilly. Assuming we can find it here. Can we not set position? Oh, there's Gilly. Okay. So our actual altitude, we can make this be like, I don't really care, like 100 meters is probably enough. We're not going to ease to ground. And let's go. Okay. So we're coming in to Gilly here. Let's go over to retrograde. Oh, we should turn off our crash damage and such at this point. The question is, how flat is this terrain? Well, does it matter is a secondary question. Now we're less than 100 meters up here. And we should fall in reasonably soon. We're going to extend our landing legs. And let's move over to surface retrograde. We're not moving quickly enough to actually lock to retrograde. So let's bring this in and see what this landing looks like. I expect us to fall over, but our SAS may be sufficient. The next question, of course, remains, how do we get this drill-o-matic working with this kind of distance? But for the time being, this'll do. Now, we can't actually really warp here, but we can lock retrograde and physics warp down. That should be fine. Okay, I'm going to fire up this engine. Oh, we don't have any fuel in it. That's hilarious. That's fine. This landing speed should be acceptable. Okay, so we bounce a bit here. So why do we not have fuel here? Is this not... Enable crossfeed. Okay. We're oxidizer deprived, apparently. Can we not crossfeed past this heat shield? Oh, we need to enable crossfeed here as well, don't we? Yes. If this is going to be the case. So we should move things around here for sure. We are using this as our, like, structural core, right? There's no doubt about that. Okay, so we're going to land over here, and we're going to bounce again. We definitely need to do something about this fuel feed. We could run, like, external fuel tanks, but I think that's kind of a terrible idea. Are we going to bounce again? Probably. It seems, however, like we're doing reasonably well. Oh, right. We impacted the ground with the physics warp on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and revert that back. We know we've got some problems. That impact under the physics warp was a Kraken-y issue. That's not a real issue there. So our real issue is that we don't have fuel going to this engine, right? It doesn't appear to be able to cross-feed past this heat shield. That's okay. So we're going to run external fuel duct down like this. What could possibly go wrong? If it'll let us. No? What if we did something really dumb? Like running it from up here. It lets us do that. That looks really stupid. Does it let us... It doesn't let us do this, though. Indeed. This would be ideal. I mean, we could potentially try to run it like this. That seems to work. So we do that, we enable crossfeed here, and enable crossfeed here. And now we should be able to get that fuel in. Okay, so let's save that and launch that again. We're going to try landing that on Gilly once more. It doesn't matter where on Gilly, and the actual landing doesn't matter. I believe we'll be fine with our Gilly landing. The main problem at this point... Hang on. I may have had a thought here. Okay, I think I have an idea. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but let's just test ourselves out at Gilly real quick here. We're getting pretty close to getting this thing ready to go. So we'll set our orbit over... Oh, I don't want to set orbit. I want to set position over Gilly. 100 meters up, looks good. We'll set our position, and let's get into position for this landing. SAS on. We're going to go to surface retrograde, but we're going to have to... That's the wrong button. We're going to have to go over this direction because we can't actually lock it due to our speed here. Let's go ahead and extend our landing legs. Beautiful. The idea that I had is, what if we were to deploy this guy, but have rotations Well, actually, we might be able to reach here. Hang on. Let's just physics warp this down. And yeah, we do have this fuel coming in here now. So that's fine. We can cushion this landing a little bit. We'll bring this on in. What is our current altitude? Sure. So I'm going to physics warp us down slightly closer. Cool. And just cushioning this landing a smidgen. Cool. So now we're going around here. We're bouncing. I'm not super surprised about that. This is Gilly after all. So we've picked up some horizontal speed here. This is something we would be able to potentially kill with RCS if we were to include that here. The real question is, though, can we come to a halt here without really leaving the ground and hold our attitude? Potentially. Also, I'm not sure what actually happens with this strut here if we try to, or rather with this strut over here, if we try to rotate this at this point. Things could get awkward. Actually, just nothing happens. Okay, good to know. So we would want to remove this strut at this point. We don't actually have an engineer in here, but we have proven that this will hold attitude here, even on some relatively, this isn't super extreme, but this proves that we would be able to hold on extreme surfaces as well. So that's fine. Now we need a deployment system for our drills that would work here. Bricks can be on. Okay, let's go ahead and revert that back to the vehicle assembly. We're making excellent progress here. So, now we need to remove this strut temporarily. Actually, I'm going to put it back. Here in the vehicle assembly, this will be fine. And for the moment, we are going to set this angle. Yeah, we should be able to go something like this and deploy the drill like that, in theory. We could also do like I was saying and mount these drills, instead of being mounted the way they are right now, mount them on something like a rotation servo. So we place this here, and that got placed on that side as well. Excellent. And then we would place this guy on the rotation servo. And this guy also on the rotation servo. So we retract those drills. And now we would grab the rotation servo, right? And we would set the angle. Oh, these are kind of opposite of each other. That's very awkward. Okay. So let's just go ahead and do that for the moment. And we'll take this off of here. Cool. And we'll now mount it separately. I want to make sure that we are... Okay. Mounted a bit more like this. Let's go ahead and rotate this to be default position like that. And we'll set the actual position on this. I'm going to turn off the snapping for this to be something a bit like that-ish. But I want to move it up like that. Cool. Now we'll grab another one of these and place it over on this side and rotate it like so. Cool. Now we'll snap it into position. And we will just, it doesn't matter the symmetry at this point, snap that into place and snap this into place, which it already is, looks like. Cool. Okay, it looks like we could definitely... Yeah, it looks like we should definitely try to move this down this way a bit. And then up that way. I think that's correct. So now at this point, we can take these rotation servos, right? And we can rotate this to be like 45 degrees. And deploy the drill like that. And with these guys extended like this, that's definitely going to reach. So that should be good. We'll retract that drill. We will reset this back. So that will allow us to deploy this without having to change too much other than removing this strut. So that'll be great. We'll go ahead and move this target angle back up to 180. Perfect. And that should allow us to deploy on Gilly after removing that strut. Okay. So this should be our Gilly situation done. We should need to do nothing else for Gilly, although we may need to deploy our Convertitron as well, most likely. Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. So we'll get the Convertitron deployed as well. That's just a matter of removing this strut and deploying it out. SAS should be able to hold that in Gilly gravity, so that's fine. The main question now comes down to, how are we going to enter Eve? Well, we're going to have a bunch of parachutes, and the parachutes are probably going to be like on these docking ports, or at least some of them are. So that would end up looking something like, let's see, we would put like Mark 25s probably. So a Mark 25 would go here, 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 and here. Now, this one is slightly offset because of its different size, I think. No, it should be correct. That should be the same distance, now that I think about it, because it's about the radius, not the center point. So this should be fine. This should be fine. The Mark 25s, I don't know that they're actually going to slow us down enough, so we're going to get a few drogues on here as well. And we're going to put a drogue out on the... Actually, I think we're going to put the drogues interior here. So they're going to go somewhere like there, approximately, but I don't really love that positioning. So maybe about here. Yeah, that should work reasonably fine. So we've got 4 drogues, 4 Mark 25s, plus this heat shield, which the heat shield will eventually be jettisoned, right? That's going to be a thing, and we're going to have to remember to take off these strut connectors before we lift off from Gilly. And refill this fuel tank. Okay. This is all assuming that we're going to land on ground on Eve, not in water. So that's going to be exciting. It is, however, time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to start some serious testing of the Eve entry, and then work on delivering this thing out to Gilly. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, MLohan80, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisil, Kadra, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.